What's going on, Broncos Country? Welcome into the Broncos Breakdown by Chat Sports. Matthew Peterson here with the latest Hackett replacement rumors. Josina Anderson dropped some bombshell-ish rumors and reports about the Broncos' early head coaching search. Remember, with 2 weeks left in the regular season, they can start to interview people who are not currently on a staff right now. So we're going to run through some of the latest rumors, but maybe the reason why you clicked on this video, the big name, Sean Payton. Let's start the show with that, and then we'll get to some of the other candidates to watch for. But Josina Anderson tweeting out, obviously Sean Payton is top dog. My understanding right now is Payton has a high affinity for the Chargers and Cowboys, with the Cardinals being a consideration too if jobs become available. When Denver calls, I expect him to listen, though he historically prefers a strong link to the GM. So quickly, while we stay on this, if the Chargers and the Cowboys both make the playoffs, which one is already clinched, the Cowboys, and they both win playoff games, which doesn't seem like a big stretch. The Cowboys are going to play the NFC South. And the Chargers, they're getting healthier right now with Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. Wouldn't be shocked if both those teams win a playoff game and they both decide, nope, we actually don't want to fire head coaches and trade for Sean Payton, which is going to cost us a pretty penny. We are comfortable staying put. The Cardinals then could be in the mix with the Broncos, and I don't know. That could be anyone's guess of where Sean Payton ends up. Remember, though, you have to trade for Sean Payton. I know that he has not coached all year, so maybe it kind of got forgotten about in the back of your head, but he retired from the Saints, which means the Saints have his contract if he decides to return to the NFL. You can't just retire and then go, coach elsewhere. You have to be traded, which has happened before in the NFL. Most recently, Bruce Arians back in 2019. Now, the Cardinals sort of did Bruce Arians an under-the-table agreement of, you know what, we are fine to go our separate ways. We're not going to hold you hostage and demand a king's ransom for you. The Bucs will trade you for him a 6th and a 7th round pick swap. It's basically just a cordial exchange, just moving up one round, which is meaningless. But the John Gruden trade 20 years ago was not the same. The Raiders got 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and $8 million in cash. My guess is Sean Payton's going to go somewhere in between, where the Saints have a lot of respect for Sean Payton and him getting a Super Bowl to the Big Easy. But this is also a Saints team that's not where they want to be right now. They are looking at a below 500 season, and they don't have a first-round draft pick coming up. So might they decide, we're not going to demand a unexpectable trade value of multiple firsts and seconds, but we might ask for a first, something Denver cannot offer. Adam Schefter, by the way, to kind of go full circle right now, he reported before Christmas on Christmas Eve that Sean Payton was so interested in returning to the NFL, he began to put together a all-star coaching, coaching staff, including former head coach of the Denver Broncos, Vic Fangio, which might be a bit awkward, and that could be a hiccup. If Sean Payton is adamant, I want Fangio as my DC, Fangio is not going to come back and be the DC for the Broncos 2 years after he was fired. We're going to go somewhere else. So that's definitely a little bit of a wrinkle to keep in mind as well. So Vegas is already on the scene as always with some next Broncos head coaching odds. And they have Sean Payton as the front runner. So Vegas believes Denver is more in contention for Sean Payton than maybe others do at plus 400. Dan Quinn right behind him at plus 500. Jim Caldwell, who was the Colts and the Lions head coach, he's got plenty of head coaching experience, third at plus 600. Shane Steichen, he's sort of like the Kellen Moore of this coaching cycle. Really young, popular, offensive guru. Look what the Eagles are doing, scoring a bunch of points. He's fourth. And then DeMeco Ryans, the DC over in San Francisco, he's been generating a lot of buzz. He is fifth. Listen, when it comes to Sean Payton, the Broncos getting him, that's a long shot in my opinion. I don't really see it happening. I hate to burst your bubble. It would be awesome, but in my heart of hearts, I don't see it happening. But money talks. And the Broncos have the richest owners in the NFL. So a blank check could go a long way to change some minds and maybe get Sean Payton to reconsider between Arizona, Kyler Murray, and Russell Wilson. I remember when Sean Payton went on ESPN or something a couple of months ago and said, here's what the Broncos are doing wrong with Russell Wilson, and here's what I would be doing. And if that's the case, boy, Sean Payton might look at the Broncos as a pretty good gig, having a quarterback in Russell Wilson that you believe you can restore. And having a first-round pick, albeit not maybe a fantastic one, but having a first-round pick for sure. Now, would you trade a first-round pick for Sean Payton? They don't have one in 2023. That belongs to Seattle. They do have their 2024 first-round pick. That would mean 2022, 2023, 2024, all without a first-round pick. Would you pull the trigger on that? Before I give you my answer, make sure to subscribe to the channel if you have not already. We are less than 100 subs away from reaching 11,100 subscribers. Click onto that sub button and get the best Broncos coaching news, rumors, and buzz. It's going to be a very roller coaster, chaotic ride these next few weeks. Ultimately, it's a tough pill to swallow to agree to part ways with 3 consecutive years of a first-round draft pick, but I think Sean Payton is worth it. I think this ownership is looking at their options right now going, we are tied to Russell Wilson. So this hire has to be someone that's going to get the best out of Russ. And Sean Payton, no doubt, would do that. He took Drew Brees, who the Chargers kind of just threw to the side and thought was trash, and he turned him into a Hall of Fame quarterback. So I think Sean Payton would do the best with Russell Wilson. I think ownership probably agrees, the Walton Penner Group, and they might decide, you know what? Let's spend some money. Let's get this right. Sean Payton, what do you say? $20 million. You're here. Some other rumors to get to here now. Josina Anderson tweeting out, I'm told some initial names being discussed for the Broncos head coaching vacancy per league source include Dan Quinn, Darrell Bevell, that kind of surprised me, Eric Bienemy, not crazy about, Sean Payton, we love, DeMeco Ryans, I don't dislike, but I'd rather go someone who's had head coaching experience before, and Shane Steichen. So, with that, we'll start to unpack these names more and more. Also really want to show this tweet from Josina. She appears to be having the inside scoop on all this. Regarding the Broncos, a league source emphasized fresh off conversations that from a macro view now, it makes sense for Denver to bring someone in with familiarity with Russell Wilson. Yet the process will play out. Dan Quinn and Darrell Bevell fit that bill, at least off the top. Right. Both of those guys were coaches with Russell Wilson in Seattle. Now, I also think it's a good time to remind you of who Denver interviewed last year. Because just less than a year later, they were already on the head coaching trail, and maybe they'll go back to some of the names they went to a year ago. Now, Luke Getsy, I don't think is probably going to be in the cards. He's the OC for the Bears, and he's not done enough to garnish a head coaching job. Same for Brian Callahan. Haven't heard a ton about him. Bienemy is an interesting name. The Chiefs are awesome on offense, but Bienemy has interviewed with half the league, and half of the league has declined him, which I think should tell you a lot. Kellen Moore, his name has kind of been watered down a little bit. I like Dan Quinn. He's got that previous head coaching experience, and he also knows how to play with Russell Wilson. Jonathan Gannon, I haven't heard much about him. Same for Aaron Glenn. Gerard Mayo, I think, could be a good locker room coach. I think he is a great leader. I just don't know if Denver wants to go back-to-back. Something like that. 4 straight head coaches who are head coach for the first time ever. And then Kevin O'Connell, he's with the Vikings. He's doing great things here. And then there's our sweet prince, Nathaniel Hackett. Let's look a closer look, though, at Josina's list of 6 names she had in that tweet. So Dan Quinn, I like. I liked Dan Quinn last year. I thought they were going to hire Dan Quinn last year. I understand it wasn't an awesome ending in Atlanta, but he did get the Falcons to the Super Bowl. And if Matt Ryan doesn't take a sack on 3rd down, he might be still head coach for the Atlanta Falcons. Then there's Darrell Bevell, which we're going to talk about more detail in just a moment. Bienemy, I already gave my piece with. I just think there is something to half of the league interviewing him and passing up on him. That should be a sign. And I also think a lot of credit should be given to Andy Reid and Mahomes for that offense. Sean Payton, we already ran over. That would be a home run. No, not a home run. That'd be a grand slam. DeMeco Ryans, I'm not quite so sold on. It might just be a little bit of a bit too familiar of overreacting to a young coordinator. Same goes for Shane Steichen, honestly. But Darrell Bevell, now this is interesting. Now he's currently the QB's coach and the passing game coordinator with the Miami Dolphins, which, you just want to go with the title, Tua's done great things so far this year for the most part. At least he's exceeded most expectations. Now, he was the Seattle Seahawks offensive coordinator from 2011, so before Russ arrived, through 2017. After that, he went to the Lions. He was the interim head coach there for a little bit before they got Dan Campbell. Then he went to the Jags, and good trivia, he was the interim head coach after the last head coach in his first year to get fired before the end of the season. Urban Meyer was canned. It was Bevell who took things over in Jacksonville. Russell Wilson played his best football under Bevell, no doubt about it. 2012 to 2017 stats there. Bevell was there from 2011, but Russ came in 2012. 64% completion, 231 yards per game, 161 touchdowns, and 56 interceptions. That is a Russell Wilson era that resulted in 2 Super Bowl trips, including 1 victory. So, to me, I'm not saying this is a no-brainer, but I can see why ownership is going, listen, we're not having your typical head coaching hire, right? We're not hiring who we think is the best man for the job. We have to hire someone who's the best man for the job and also knows how to work with Russell Wilson, because we sunk $250 million into him, and we need to get everything we can out of him. That is our investment. And if we think Darrell Bevell can maximize Russ to his greatest limits, they may very well go that route. If Russell Wilson was not the quarterback and they ran it back with Teddy Bridgewater and hired Hackett and fired Hackett, Bevell probably isn't on the table right now. But because Russell Wilson's there, they're going to take a good hard look at all of his previous coaches like Shane Waldron, currently in Seattle, and give them a good think about maybe going a route that benefits Russ the best. We'll end the show with this, though. Who is your top Hackett replacement? Curious who your number one guy is, right? If you got to be Walton Penner ownership right now and you got to decide the next Broncos head coach, who would you pick? Let me know in the comments.